beautiful episode of The Mindful Living with your host Sana, where we explore intentional ways to align our minds, bodies, and businesses in a world that's constantly changing. Now, today we are entering a very fascinating space, the intersection of artificial intelligence and holistic living. Well, it sounds paradoxical, right? Maybe, but our guest proves it's not only possible, it is powerful. And joining us, listeners, is Joshua Hale, a modern day tech shaman in my eyes, someone who went from dropping out of high school to helping small businesses hit seven figures through smart, soulful AI strategies. But here's what really drew me in. He's doing all this from a 10-acre homestead surrounded by ducks, gardens, and community, all while actively participating in mutual aid networks. This conversation isn't about choosing nature and tech, listeners. It's about how we can mindfully integrate both to create a life that's not just productive, but deeply meaningful to us. So let's quickly dive in. So, with that, Joshua, welcome to the show, and I'm really, truly honored to have you here with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I don't often get to dive into like the wellness aspect of what I do, but oh boy, has it been a huge part of my own past and what I really love to help people out with.
That's lovely. So, Joshua, although I barely scratched about you in my intro, but I guess our listeners would love to know your journey. What brought you to the world of tech or helping small businesses out there leverage AI soulfully? I mean, now it gives a whole different kind of tangent to the usage of AI. So, why don't you share a bit about your personal journey?
Well, I'll start off, in my 20s, I was a DJ, a club DJ in Seattle. And that really was the main focus of my life. Unfortunately, I developed a ton of bad habits living that party lifestyle. And by the time I hit 30, I had just had some horrendous, addictions that I was being forced to deal with. And luckily, I learned about meditation and was able to find my inner strength to then be able to address the addiction problems that I had. And it took about 2 years, but I went from like hard drugs, letting go of those, to hard liquor, to liquor in general, to marijuana. I don't even smoke marijuana anymore. And then quitting cigarettes was the last thing. So that took about 2 years to, purge and clean my system. Then the fog like left my head, and I realized that I had the emotional intelligence, the critical thinking, the, understanding of the world, of basically when I started doing drugs when I was 16. So I came out as a 33-year-old looking around and being like, "Oh man, I am not equipped to succeed in the world." So I kind of hit hyperdrive and just, started pursuing all self-development that I could get my hands onto. Well, that process, right, took me like 10 years to really get my feet underneath me, develop good spiritual practices, and uh, get a foundation to like build my success off of. And it was very hard work. This was like 2012 when I started. And so trying to like find beneficial information that was really tailored to where I was in that journey was like difficult to, it wasn't easy. It was just like random piece here, random piece there. And, that was my spiritual path and it was, good for me. But this process I've found can be really shortcutted nowadays, leveraging AI. And so I'll get to more about that in a minute, but I really had to, build myself up quickly over the last 10 years to then be able to, enjoy the life that I have built. And I live on 10 acres out in the rural area above Seattle, about 2 hours from Seattle. And I have a multi-generational property. So we live with my wife's parents. They have their own house. We have our house. We built a barn. My wife has a business and works upstairs in the barn. I have my office downstairs in the barn. And so we've really built a life that, supports us and is wholesome. And I had to learn all these things, right? How to eat well, how to, remove toxins in my environment, how to like address the immaturity of my brain and its wiring and develop processes to, communicate clearly with my wife and the close relationships around us, all the way to, developing healthy community around us so that we have, support that's bigger than just myself or my family.
That is so, so inspiring, Joshua. So inspiring. So many takeaways or lessons we all can learn from your journey. First of all, hugely appreciate your vulnerability and courage to share your darkest moments, your achievements as well. I mean, you had to unlearn to learn so much from the scratch. Um, and also, I when you were sharing your journey, I was wondering that what exactly, I mean, you definitely had to learn the channels or practices or tools to let go of your addiction and instability, and then build a life which supports you, build a house, build your life, everything which supports you, in which you can thrive. So what exactly, which element played an important role in that transformation, both personally and professionally?
Well, back in the day, I was just a cook in restaurants. That was the only job that I was qualified for. And I didn't know how to get out of that industry, right? I didn't have any experience in anything else to be able to, shift my career. Uh, and then I developed a process to help myself out, which was custom affirmation tracks. Those custom affirmation tracks, I used my own voice, came up with some affirmations, read them into a voice memo. And then because I had a DJ audio background, I was able to make these fun tracks where the first half was the audio of the voice with some ambient music behind it. Then the second half, I brought the voice down below earshot. So it ended up being like a subliminal message to yourself of yourself. I was very adamant about it only being your voice, right? I didn't want anybody else in my head programming, the wiring in there. And I shared it with a friend, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing! Can you make me one?" And I did. I coached her into like making one, and then she's like, "You should start a business doing this." And I was like, "Yeah, sure. All right." Not knowing anything about entrepreneurship. Well, she kind of coached me through, how to create a website and then how to help create the offer and to be able to fulfill that. Then it was time to go to social media and tell everybody about this amazing tool, right? That helped me out so much. And what I found out was, yelling at everybody in all caps for a year doesn't sell any products. And it was the experience I learned of failing for a year that I realized other businesses, especially 2012, right? Social media was just becoming a known thing. Businesses were realizing they had to adopt to this new online presence, and so I started helping out other businesses, just getting kind of freelance work, and then I started learning about digital marketing, right? From helping out with social media posts, about advertising, and then about creating lead magnets and things for emails, and then email marketing, and then the whole gambit of digital marketing. And so I spent about 10 years helping people with that, started my own marketing agency, and then ChatGPT came out. And I saw how disruptive it was going to be to everything. Uh, but because I was in the marketing agency, I was able to sign up for ChatGPT and test it out on different industries of my clients. And I quickly saw the strengths and weaknesses of that. And I essentially jumped ship from the marketing agency to help people out one on one and with them in their businesses, leveraging AI, helping them with taking the marketing frameworks that used to take weeks and weeks and weeks to roll out, we can now do in just a couple hours. So that's what I spend most of my time during the week doing, and is helping people, adapt to this new AI age that we're in. But
Mhm.
it can be really scary for a lot of people, right? They hear AI and they, immediately think of Terminator and, how dangerous this can be for humanity. And I totally get that. However, right now, with large language models being what they are, it's essentially just a word predictor, like on your keyboard where you're typing to your friends, right? It's just predicting what the next word is going to be. And this tool is, I see, is a huge, you know, uh, empowerment to individuals and entrepreneurs is an easy way to understand, right? When I first started, I didn't understand all the areas that it takes to run a business and, finances and accounting and fulfillment and follow-ups, all these things that are just unknown when you have a good idea. And now AI can teach you and describe those things before you stumble your way in there. Now, a major thing that I found out playing around with it is it's really good for self-development, and we can talk about that.
Yeah, true, true. Because, I think AI can be like a mentor or a guide to you, of course, with the right commands or prompts given to it. But it can really be a kind of a friend, to whom you will go and ask for a suggestion, maybe based on your current problem or your scenario. I think not only in professional context but in personal context as well, it can be such a great tool to leverage. So that's quite a, journey in professional uh, part there as well, Joshua. um, okay, so now let's talk about the implementation part. So um, you personally, how do you personally define holistic success? I mean, how do you help um, small businesses or medium businesses or entrepreneurs implement AI tools without losing their values?
Yeah, that's a really important aspect, right?
Mhm.
Because we've seen this in the early, for the last 2 years, people just mass adopting AI, and then you can tell there's just kinda like there's no life behind what people are just copying and pasting into social media or their landing pages. So, I really, stick with the rule of, 10-80-10, right? 10% is you with your ideas and creativity. 80% now is AI being able to really improve and empower you to create copy, brainstorm ideas, and help out with communications with your partner, and
Yeah.
uh, and then the 10% is always you, right? You always want to humanize what it comes up with and polish it, make it into your own words, and that way it's just shortcutting what we're already doing and being able to, fill in skills that you might not have cultivated yet, right? I was never that good at copywriting. But now I'm sending out, like 4 newsletters a week and I'm having a lot of fun doing it. So being able to know, like, don't give it all to AI and just for and like and to not oversee or look it over, but you really want to be able to incorporate it into your workflows.
Mm, makes sense. Makes sense. And also, one another thing which I love about your work is your emphasis on independence and community. So, how do you balance those two? Being self-reliant on your homestead while also building mutual aid networks and then digital connections.
Yeah, that's a big aspect of my life. I realize, I really strive to embody the value of autonomy, being able to do things myself, being self-reliant. But in all honesty, right, there's no way for us to, do it all ourselves. So I'm all about creating a strong family unit, right? And supporting a loving environment around me with my family. And then having a community to support that structure around us. And I've been running a mutual aid group for the last 3 years. And it's essentially 8 families that work together. You know, we do garden parties and we help each other out. And we meet once a month and have a admin meeting where we discuss, you know, what we want to be working together on. You know, we all pitched in and bought a freeze dryer together. You know, those things are like $3,000 here in America, and so quite a bit about amount of money. But we were all able to pitch in and then buy it for the group and then share it around and have it as an asset for the group. So it's been
Mm.
a huge amount of support and, you know, just having a team around you of neighbors that are looking out for you. And, you know, I can reach out to at any time. For the men, we do, you know, cold plunging together and we go out and practice, you know, skill building. So it's a lot of fun and a way for you to be able to, you know, actually organize yourself with your neighbors. So if something was to happen, like a natural disaster, I got a crew that I can trust, and we have, you know, plans and supplies to be able to insulate my family from whatever is going on a societal level. And this plan for mutual aid groups, you know, I have it on my website. It can be replicatable and anybody can start these things from homeless encampments all the way up to, you know, big prepping groups. Uh, but the family of 8 is a structure where there's enough people in there to get things done, but not too much to, you know, get buried in the decision making and bureaucracy. It's kind of the sweet spot. But I have multiple groups of 8 in my area, in my county, and we can all come together for skill shares and for, you know, if we need to raise a barn, then we have the numbers to be able to do that.
That is super, super awesome. Wow. And I think that is community and the power of people best. You mentioned initially about especially the aversion to AI, or that fear whenever something related to AI comes, that it's a terminator or it will take away our jobs. And uh, when we take that in the context of soul, many people fear that AI is, just bluntly cold and disconnected from, soul work. So how do you reframe AI as something that can actually support mindfulness, intention, and authenticity?
Great question. Now, what I've discovered with now, you know, granted, privacy is a concern with AI, but I tend to overshare with my ChatGPT. I've put a lot of you know, my own personal development into it and knows a lot about me. So everybody just has to kind of gauge where they feel comfortable, and you know, it has privacy settings that you can turn on and things like that. That could be another discussion. But what I found is it's really good at reflecting things back at you. You can just turn on, you know, the voice mode and be able to just go on a walk and kind of just brain dump everything, all the problems you're experiencing, everything into it. And it will then give you such clarity and organize, you know, response that that can be really helpful. Now, just 2 weeks ago, I put in a prompt and basically telling it to be, you know, don't be nice. I want you to point out negative loops that you've seen me stuck in. And what it responded with, you know, dropped my jaw. And I was really like shook by what it called me out on. Now, I have a loving wife. She's a great partner and companion. Um, but you know, we can't quite depend upon our close relationships to be real blunt with us, right? And to be like call us out in a way that isn't through a relationship lens. And AI is a great companion because it kind of does this unbiasedly and will just kind of tell it as it is. And what it showed me, I shared it with my best friend about a week later, I went and visited him. We had a like 2 hour car ride to go snowboarding, and I read it to him, and he said, "Joshua, you could have spent 2 years going to a therapist, and if you got that as a result, it would have been worth every penny." Said that right there is about 98% accurate from everything that I know about you. And it was true, right? And it gave me what I needed to work on, which is it's called the builder's dilemma of constantly building up my brand and my businesses and my websites and not never like finding um uh uh being uh being happy with the results. So it bluntly just called me out and told me like, "Yo, you've made it, man. You're doing it, and you need to be able to appreciate what you're doing. Otherwise, what's it all for?" Right?
Yeah, true, true. Oh, that is that is such an interesting point about this. And although you talk about the wonders of AI, on the other hand, you have an upcoming book on 15 biggest AI dangers we'll face. And without giving too much away, of course, can you share what exactly motivated you to write this book, and also any one danger that you think spiritual or mindful entrepreneurs they need to be specially aware of, and how to navigate it with grace?
Yeah. So that book, I really wanted to point out like there are concerns about AI, but it's not your typical like Hollywood versions of these things, right? Big government and big corporations are developing these AI systems, and you know they have their own intentions with what they're doing with them. There's a thing called Stargate Project that was just launched here in America, and it got billions and billions of dollars in funding, but essentially creating the infrastructure to integrate AI into everything. And it can easily turn into kind of a dystopian 1984, AI
Right,
is
right.
watching everything you do because, you know, we're all we're all trailing data with all our online presence for the last 10 plus years, right? And so we've never had the ability to process that amount of data before until these AI systems come online. I'm a huge advocate for open source AI systems, running AI locally in your office or home so that data stays with you and isn't going off to a server somewhere. So there are legitimate concerns about AI, but it's just not the Hollywood versions. Another one is autonomous weaponry, right? And that's just the governments and military just, going a bit too far, in my opinion, of taking the human decision making out of these like weapons that can, hurt a lot of people. That I think is a really bad idea. So the book is just kind of, giving us a little dose of reality of, what is actually things we need to be aware of so we can take precautions and measures and know where that line in the sand is, for our AI use. Like a quick one is the conversational AI, being able to talk to ChatGPT. If anyone's seen the movie Her, right? There's psychological tricks that will take place where, humans can very easily just fall in love with this voice, personifying it. And we need to understand that these things are tools, right? It's just a hammer and you can do good things and bad things with it. But I found a trick to kind of like pick the voice you find most annoying, and then you won't have these, chemical reactions taking place, or you might be, getting a lot of praise from your AI and feeling some funny feelings inside.
Hmm. Oh, that is really, really interesting, and it's such a mindful, work you are doing. On the one hand, you are also promoting the benefits of AI, but definitely there are some dangers. There is a caveat to this, so that's really interesting. So, Joshua, before we wrap up, if our listeners would like to connect with you and get a hold of your upcoming book, how they can do that?
Yeah, you can follow my journey at joshuahale.io. I have a lot of freebies and courses and like fun things to help you on your journey, no matter where you're at. So joshuahale.io.
Great. I'll have all the links mentioned in the show notes for our listeners. And thank you so much, Joshua, for this informative conversation and insightful as well, and for showing us what it looks like to live with both intention and innovation at the same time. So, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing these gems with us.
Oh, it's been a real pleasure. I love talking about this stuff. Have a wonderful day.
And for all of our listeners, if you are building something meaningful, don't be afraid to explore new tools. Just do it on your own terms. Use tech to enhance your values, not replace them. And remember, as Joshua reminds us, true power lies in staying connected. So, to your vision, to your people, and to your inner truth as well. And to connect with Joshua, and also to keep an eye out on his new book, 15 Dangers AI, 15 Biggest AI Dangers You Will Face in Your Lifetime. You can refer to the show notes. Until next time, take a deep breath, stay rooted, and keep living mindful. This is your host, Sarah, signing off. Thank you.